Welcome back to Inside College Basketball Now with Jon Rothstein. Pleased to be joined by Indiana head coach Darian DeVries. And Darren, welcome. But before we get to basketball, this is something I've wanted to ask you a long time. And quite frankly, you've ignored it in every media interview you've ever done. How did Darian DeVries become D-Rock?
It's a great secret. So, good luck. Good luck trying to find the answer to that one.
Where did the nickname come from?
It kind of started in college and then just kind of carried on. And when I started at Creighton, I think Coach Altman saw it on a keychain, and that's how it kind of just stuck from there. So I think for my 20 years at Creighton, I think everybody thought my first and last name was D-Rock.
Okay. Fair enough. But obviously you've transitioned from a guy with a nickname to the head coach at one of the great brands in college basketball. You're in your first year at Indiana. What do you think your reaction would have been over the summer if somebody told you, you know what, you're going to start 7-0?
Yeah, I don't know. I think as you're putting a team together, that your only thought process is like, hey, every day, like once you start workouts, like how do we get better? What do we got to keep doing to improving? And then as you start playing games, those wins and losses just kind of happen every night. You line up, you try to win the game, and hopefully you have a positive result, and then you go to the next one. And your goal is to stack up as many of them as you can.
How have you gotten, especially in this climate, your team to play such unselfish basketball?
Yeah, I think we have a good group of guys. I think they have a great understanding of how to play offense. They have a good feel for one another. I think that connectivity happened pretty fast, especially when, like you mentioned, like when you have a whole new group of guys. Sometimes that can take a little bit of time, but this group's really bought into it. They're having fun with it, so it's been fun to watch them to this point. The way they've shared the basketball.
And you literally carved this team out of ice. It was a brand new roster. It was a brand new start. What were the biggest things you wanted to bring in when you were identifying kids to take out of the transfer portal?
Yeah, I thought overall, we wanted to identify guys that we thought could all like fit together. Where we had good versatility in a lot of different ways, both defensively and offensively. You want to make sure we had, a lot of shooting out on the floor, guys that we felt had a good feel for the game as well. And the way it came together, it's hard in the springtime when you have an empty roster. You got to put the whole thing together. So it's we were pretty patient with it, I thought, and overall we were really pleased with how the way it played out.
Now, I know you've only played games against two power conference opponents, Marquette and Kansas State, and that's going to amplify here over the next couple of weeks. But when you're evaluating a player who is from a mid-major program, how do you know some of their skills are going to translate to the power conference level?
Yeah, I think for us, it's like you got, maybe it's a mid-major guy that's played a lot of minutes, or sometimes you get a high major guy that hasn't played a lot of minutes. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. I think overall, it's just what things do they do that you feel translate to the high major level, and how do they fit within what you're doing? And I think overall these guys have done a really good job of making those adjustments.
What's the biggest thing you know now about being Indiana's head coach that you didn't know prior to taking the job?
I don't think there's really a lot new. I mean, it's everybody knows this is a fan base that loves their hoops, and that's a really good thing. So I think overall it's been exactly what we thought it would be, and we've really enjoyed it.
How is being the head coach at Indiana different from being the head coach at West Virginia or the head coach at Drake?
I think everywhere, every fan base, you want to win. I think overall there's a lot of similarities in that way. It's just, there's just so much tradition here, and there's such a great history that, it's something that everybody is very proud of, and they should be. And it's our job to continue to try to, build on that as we continue forward with, what we're trying to do.
2 years ago, you're a head coach at Drake in the Missouri Valley. Now you're the head coach at Indiana. What has it been like being in the fishbowl for the first time as a head coach?
Again, I don't think there's a lot different. I think when you get into coaching, you're just so into game planning and what you're doing on a daily basis. So you're from a coaching standpoint, the film and stuff, none of that changes. The game prep, it's all the same. You're just trying to beat that next opponent. So overall, it's you very much live in a bubble as a coach. So you're just doing what you do, and you show up for work, and you and your staff are just trying to do the best job you can every game to try to put yourself in the best position.
Darren, Tom Crean did a really, really good job at Indiana when he was there, went to, a bunch of Sweet 16s, won the Big Ten title twice outright. But really, since Coach Knight left, the level of success at Indiana has been very sporadic over the last 25 years. Now that you sit in the seat, why do you think maybe there hasn't been able to be consistent success at Indiana over the last 25 years?
Yeah, I can't say that for sure. I think there's just a lot of variables that go into everything. I think from my standpoint, we just worry about us and what we can do to try to be as successful as we can.
What was your impression of Indiana basketball as a kid growing up in the Midwest?
Yeah, it was one of those schools, programs, whatever, that everybody you identify with because they were so successful as you're coming up. I think one of the main ones that sticks to my mind is Isaiah Thomas. Watching him play and even Steve Alford. One of those guys that could really shoot the basketball. Then it was just such a historic program growing up that it was one of those things that's like, wow, Indiana basketball, like that's the place. That's the one of the premier programs in the country as you grew up in the Midwest.
Well, that's obviously the goal for you and your staff to get it back to being one of the premier programs in the country, and you've obviously taken a step here in the first 7 games. How is the team 7-0?
I think they've just done a good job of staying in what we're trying to work on and really playing unselfishly. I think they played incredibly hard and they're getting better every day too, and that's a really good thing. And we know we got some areas that we got to continue and improve on as we get ready for conference play, and got that coming up right away here on Wednesday. So we're excited to continue to see what this group can grow into.
Now, one thing that is obviously unique for you is it's the dream of any coach to be the head coach at a blue blood program. That's why I'm sure you get into the business, because that gives you a better chance to go to the Final Four, win a national title. But you get to go through this with your son. What has that been like, sharing the experience with him?
Yeah, we've really enjoyed it. It's something that we talk about all the time, more in the off season. Just you get that day to day. Maybe in the summertime after workouts and things, you get to go enjoy a round of golf together or whatever it may be. Go grab dinner, and those type of things have made that experience really special, because there's so many times when your kids go to college, you don't get to spend that day to day with them, and I get to do that every day. So that part's been pretty special, and then you just get to go through and compete together. I think that's something we both really enjoy is that competition and the chance to go out there every night and do it together.
I know you were an assistant at Creighton when obviously Doug McDermott was there, and he was the best player in college basketball his last year when he was there. When you were watching Coach McDermott coach his son, did that almost plant the seed where you said, you know what, when Tucker is old enough, I hope we can do this someday?
Yeah, I mean, that would have been cool. That wasn't on my radar, though. I was thinking I was hoping my son could get a walk-on spot somewhere. That was my evaluation at the time. I also let myself off the hook too. I think Greg McDermott and Doug McDermott. His evaluation was a little off on him too, coming out of high school. So, but to get the chance to be around those years with Doug and Greg was pretty special, because Doug had maybe one of the best, if not the best, college senior year that I've ever seen, for sure.
What advice did Greg give you about coaching your son in college?
I think the biggest thing was, just let him be one of the guys. He's going to, be upset with the coach just like everybody else would at times. He's going to, hang out with him and give him his space. And I've certainly tried to do that. And I think we've been able to keep a really good balance there of, on the floor versus off the floor, and still be father son when it's time to do that, and be player coach when it's time to do that.
Coached a lot of great shooters during your time at Creighton, and really during your time as a coach as well. You had a lot of great teams at Drake that could shoot the basketball. But I'm curious, where does Lamar Wilkerson rank among the best shooters you've ever coached?
Yeah, he's right up there. I put him in that group, and everybody's just a little bit different on what they're, a lead at from as a shooter. But, when you think about Kyle Korver and Doug McDermott, those are the two that really stand out. And we've had a lot of good ones over the years, but he's certainly in that group of guys that, shoots the ball at elite level.
And obviously him and Tucker are two mainstays for your team. But, the more and more I watch you guys, Trent Sisley just comes to the forefront as a guy who's going to be part of, obviously, the focal points of conversation among Big Ten people when we get into the winter. How much of a pleasant surprise has he been?
Yeah, he's been great. He's just continued to get better and better as, from when he first got here in the summertime to now. He's just gaining in confidence. And he just does so many little things too. He's one of those guys that, we don't run a lot of plays for him right now. He's just one of those guys that he falls into, 10 or 15 points, and he's always got, 4 to 6 rebounds. Just does a great job of finding a role and really filling into it, in a big way. And, I see his role continuing to grow and grow, not only throughout the year, but throughout his career.
No question, last year Florida had, the deepest front court in college basketball. It's part of the reason why they won the national championship. Sam Alexis is somebody who I think we're starting to see, who he was a part of Florida's team, but he just needed more usage and more of an opportunity. How much do you think that was the case for him when he obviously decided to transfer to Indiana from Florida?
Yeah, I think, Sam was on a team that had a lot of depth at that position, and he was certainly one of those guys. I think if he had gotten that same opportunity, would have been very productive too. It's just you can only play so many guys, and we're certainly thankful to have him. And you could see him continue to grow in confidence as his playing time or his minutes and things and his usage. And he's just done a really good job for us. And he's going to be critical for us because he does give us that physicality as we head into league play, and he can do a lot of things from a versatility standpoint at both ends of the floor for us.
I know in the preseason when we spoke, you were concerned about, your front court depth and physicality, especially when you get into the guts of the Big Ten. Now that you've played a couple of games against power conference teams, does that remain your biggest concern as things get to ramp up here?
Yeah, I think it's just overall, just, how big we are in athletic, just from a rebounding standpoint, primarily. That's the number one thing that we're going to have to really put a focus on every day from here till the end of the season. Just doing a really good job of making sure that we, make contact, for rebounding. We're not going to be, above the squares going and getting a lot of rebounds. So we got to make sure we do some of the little things that's going to help us be effective as a defensive rebounding group.
Well, you mentioned obviously getting into league play. That's going to happen this week at Minnesota. And then Saturday, you're playing in a massive game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis against Louisville, who's a top 10 team. What are the emotions like, for you, knowing that this week starts, obviously, not just a big non-conference game, but also your first game as a Big Ten head coach?
Yeah, I mean, this is like we told the guys, you have your off season, then you have your fall workouts, then your exhibition games, and then it's non-conference, and now it's league play, and that's where things really get amped up, and we got to make sure we're doing a great job in our preparation, getting ready for the start of Big Ten play. Even though you're going to have a little bit of some non-conference games still sprinkled in between these here, and then you come back from after the new year, and then it's straight league play. But you want to make sure you're ready for it. You're going on the road. Road games in every league are hard, especially in this league. So we know we're going to have to be on point with everything that we're doing to get ready for Wednesday's game at Minnesota.
I know later in December, you're going to go to Rupp Arena in the start of a multi-year series with Kentucky, which is great for the sport to have Indiana, Kentucky playing again. Other than that, are there things that you'd like to do moving forward with the non-conference schedule? Like, would you like to play a brand like Louisville on an annual basis if you could?
Yeah, and we're doing some things there. None of it's not all of it's public yet, but we're certainly exploring opportunities next year for some home and homes. I think neutral site games across the country are becoming, kind of a big thing. We're getting those opportunities to go find a neutral site to go play some games. So we'll certainly put a priority on that as well. But anytime we can find some really good home and homes and some series like that, we're going to try and do that. And then sprinkle in some neutral site games along with it.
Is there anything for the 2026-27 non-conference schedule that you can share aside from the Kentucky game?
Not yet. Yeah, we're working on some things. We're pretty close on some good games that we're pretty excited about.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to monitoring that in the days and weeks to come. You had an interesting, obviously, experience last year at West Virginia because you had a team that did enough to make the NCAA tournament, and you were inexplicably left out on Selection Sunday. When you go through that as a coach, and then you start the next season, does it magnify the importance of these non-conference games because of the magnitude of the opportunities?
I think you still prioritize all the games. Like you just have to do as much as you can and win as many games as you can. And we certainly felt like we did that last year. We thought we were one of those teams that belonged in the tournament, and we can only control the things that we can control. But I thought our group had done certainly enough to be in there. And our goal this year is to put ourselves in a position to make sure that it's not left to chance at the end. So that's our goal. As we play every game, just win as many as possible and put yourself in the best spot you can.
And one of obviously the advantages you are going to have over other teams is the great home court advantage that is Assembly Hall. What was it like for your first game when you walked out onto the court?
Yeah, as you know, this is a special place. It's you can rank it wherever you want to rank it, but I think it's right up there at the top in terms of one of the most unique college experiences in all of college basketball. The building itself is it's just got an aura to it when you walk in that's just different from anywhere else you go. And when you have a fan base as passionate as we have, and the way they get into games and support us, it's a pretty cool feeling, and excited for the start of Big Ten play as it gets even a little more rowdy in there, and it should be a lot of fun.
Darren, from your perspective, what are the biggest long-term keys for this team to have a chance to be one of the best teams in the Big Ten, and then obviously have a chance to have a quality seed in the NCAA tournament?
I think number one thing is just continue to play the right way, continue to move and share the ball and be unselfish. And they've done a great job to this standpoint. And then we talked about it earlier. It's just we have to be able to rebound the basketball and continue to grow and improve there. And as much as anything, just from hey, here's our habits and making sure you're connecting to making sure it's just it's a mindset thing that, we're going to go be a good defensive rebounding team. And I just believe if you can set your mind to it, you can go do those type of things. And that's going to be a huge key for us.
Has there been any, oh my God, moments that you're the head coach at Indiana, considering you're going through this for the first time? Because this is not just any program. This is obviously, a blue of the blue bloods right now. And you were just, again, 2 years ago, a coach in the Valley. Has that happened to you yet?
It's like every day it's a special feeling when you walk into the arena, and I think that's enough in itself right there. It's you look up at those banners, and and then you get started with practice. It's about practice. So we're just trying to do everything we can, like we said, to continue to make everyone that's a proud alum of this program, and represent them all in a positive way. And our guys have certainly done a great job of that to this point. And we're just excited about the future and seeing how we can continue to build as we go.
All right, there you have it. Indiana 7-0 at Minnesota this week in the Big Ten opener, and then the big one on CBS Saturday against Louisville at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. Darren, appreciate a couple minutes, man. Know how busy you are. All the best to you this week. Safe travels to Minnesota, and as always, look forward to staying connected along the way.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, John.
You got it. That's Indiana head coach Darian DeVries. I'm Jon Rothstein, and this is Inside College Basketball Now.